Ever wondered about wine concierge services in Israel? You don't even have to live there. Well, you're in luck. That's exactly what we're going to discuss on this 175th episode of The Jewish Drinking Show, bringing L'chaim to life. Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of The Jewish Drinking Show. I'm your host, Rabbi Drew Kaplan, and I'm very excited to welcome first-time guest to the show, Eli Freedman. Welcome, Eli.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. It's good to be here.
Eli or Eli? I should have asked.
It's on when you're writing me a check, it's the same thing, so it doesn't really make a difference.
That's good. Great answer. All right, so for those less familiar with Eli or Eli, or as long as the check clears, for those less familiar with him, he is the creator of Cork Cellar, which is available at corkandcellar.net. And so we're going to be talking about him, and actually I'll let him introduce himself, his autobiography in a nutshell.
In a nutshell? This is me in a nutshell.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I moved to Israel almost 3 years ago from Montreal. I'm American. I was born in Boston, born and raised in Boston. Wife is Canadian. We ended up moving to Montreal after we got married. We lived there for about 20 years. And after the family started growing, we got some kids in Israel, grandkids. We decided to make the big move. I was in a bunch of different businesses back in Montreal. Wine was an extreme hobby of mine, but I never really monetized it. And coming to Israel, you have to figure out what you're going to do over here. So I came up with a concept called Cork Cellar, where we build, collect, and store wine collections for people living all over the world who visit Israel often, who want to have a wine cellar here, who don't necessarily have a house or an apartment. We built out a beautiful wine cellar where everything is, kept at the right temperature, and it's insured and it's secure. And that was the original concept that we came up with. And that was initialized about 2 months before the war started. And it was pretty much based on tourism, which took a big hit while, in the initial stages there. Mm-hmm. So throughout that period, the last, year and a half, we've restructured and reshuffled. I've moved more into serving people who live in Israel, Americans who live in Israel, who like to drink often but don't know where to buy or what to invest in. So I curate their collections, and even if they don't store their wines at my place, I still buy for them and deliver to them, whether they're in Netanya, Ra'anana, Tel Aviv, Yerushalayim, wherever they may be. And we got into a lot of gifting options where people want to send gifts from their collections or just in general. Then we got into Cuban cigars, which are legal in Israel. That's a popular item. And, obviously the usual Hanukkah gifts, the Purim, Mishloach Manot, things like that. We moved into that also. And there was also a significant amount we did wine tastings at our cellar or at people's parties or simchas. Well, we talk about the wine. They have a lot of guests. We bring in, I pour I show them how to spin their glass, and I show them how to taste the wine. And I typically also get tourists who come to my place who don't have the time to go all the way up north and visit different wineries, since I deal with all the wineries and I have wines from all over the world at my place. So a lot of times people come to my cellar. They'll do tastings from all over Israel. And I have the option of them, walk cash and carry, or I have started shipping to the United States, whatever they want, even large quantities. I ship them to the States directly to their houses. And recently I came up with a concept called Cork Cellar the Club. Using my logistical maneuvering, I was able to set up a situation where people living in the States don't have to order a huge amount, don't have to come to Israel, but they can access delicious wines from Israel. Now, obviously, there are a lot of people who sell wine from Israel in the United States, but my only focus is getting them wines that are not exported, finding the small hidden gems all over Israel, small wineries, what you call them, garage wineries, or just small places that don't produce enough or don't have the wherewithal to ship to the States. They don't want to work with the big, the big importers, distributors. They have small margins, so they really can't afford to sell it much cheaper. So I'm specializing in those wines specifically and getting them straight to people's doors at their homes or offices in the United States. So that's basically my my biography in a nutshell.
I want to talk about these. It sounds like three, if we could categorize them as three separate aspects of the services that you offer. So the first of these is the cellaring, which you announced, I guess, late 2023.
Yeah.
Was that what, August, September 2023?
Summer 2023.
So, summer 2023. Okay, so the private cellaring, how did you see that need, and how did you decide to go about filling that niche? And nobody else offers that, right?
Well,
Or
the bigger the reach is. So,
uh-huh.
I mean, I had to try to find something that I'm not a very competitive person. I don't like to compete with other people. I want to try to find something that is unique.
Hmm.
And before I started, I spoke to a lot of people and they thought, hey, that's a cool idea. I'll charge a monthly fee for storage. And with that, whenever they come here, they can buy whatever they want. I'll give them a discount and they'll get great service, American service. People come here, they just want to be taken care of. They're worried about being taken advantage of. They don't speak the language. They're worried about storage. You know, if someone's buying an expensive wine and it's just sitting on a shelf in a hot store in Jerusalem, you know, they're a bit hesitant to invest in that, to enjoy it. You know, obviously, I give the American service. Every bottle I sell comes with a guarantee. If it's not good, I take it back. It's only
Wow.
happened once. But that's the main crowd. I wasn't really focusing on the Israeli crowd. I was more focusing on the new to Israel and the tourists that come to Israel, working with party planners and private chefs who, you know, promote or provide, you know, people's parties, simachot here when they're here for Yontif and things like that, delivered to the hotels, so on and so forth.
Yeah. So I'm happy to talk about that. It sounds like it got incredibly disrupted fall 2023. That didn't pan out as the way you planned it at the time. Hopefully we can get back to it.
It definitely didn't go according to my dreams,
Fair.
but in Israel we go with the flow, and it is what it is. And it hasn't been sidelined. It hasn't been shelved. It's just not. It's not my main focus right now, just because there isn't such a big demand for it. And with the war going on, I feel that the big parties that we had before the war
Hmm.
and the larger amounts of drinking and spending have kind of been toned down a bit
Yeah.
in the spirit of the environment that's here.
You know what? Fine. We'll just talk about the rest of the cellaring, I guess. So for the rest of the cellaring, have you seen any pickup? I know you mentioned a couple months into it, war broke. Obviously 10/7, all the war happened, but in the year and a half, have things picked up any bit with the cellaring project?
It has picked up somewhat, but what I found was that most people weren't so keen on just buying and cellaring. I found that the trend was more that people are going to come here, they're going to buy a lot, but they don't want to, they want to get it on the spot. They're not really interested in investing and storing and putting it away. I do have customers who like to visit wineries when they're here. So typically if they're just visiting, they'd only be able to buy a few bottles. If they taste something that they really like and they want to have it for later, they're not able to because they can't schlep it all back on an airplane.
Hmm.
So what they'll do is they can order a few cases or even join a wine club of a winery in Israel, and the winery will ship the wine directly to my facility and I store it for them in their private cellar. So it's accessible to them whenever they want. And whenever the opportunity comes, I can either ship it back to them when they want, or once they accumulate a certain amount, it's worth it for them to ship it, or they can access it whenever they come here. They come here 2, 3, 4 times a year. It's always available to them.
I'm
The other trend
Yeah.
I did notice,
Yeah.
the primary trend is that people only wanted to drink Israeli wine.
Mhm.
They moved away from the French and the Italian and the Californian, and people coming here just saying, listen, I just want to support Israel. I just want to get Israeli wine. I just find me what I want in Israel.
But that's a post 10/7 thing, right?
That's a post 10/7 thing.
That's
Yeah.
post 10/7. Okay.
Hello, dear listeners. It's your host, Rabbi Drew. I wanted to break in right now and just say, hey, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate, or watching, however you're consuming this content. And I'm always open for new ideas, both for specifically the Jewish Drinking Show, whether it's topics, whether it's guests. I'm also looking for other resources that I can provide you with in the Jewish Drinking Project more broadly. Also, I'd really like to offer you the opportunity to sponsor this work. If you want to go to patreon.com/Jewish Drinking, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you have ideas for swag, also, please feel free to send them to me at drew@jewishdrinking.com. All right, thank you so much, L'chaim, and now back into the episode.
I just want to, I know we could gloss over the cellaring thing. I just want to stay on it for just a moment. For listeners, viewers who may be less familiar with cellaring, I don't think we've ever spoken. I know that there's been over 170 episodes. I don't think we've ever spoken. This is the very first mention ever on the show of cellaring. So for those less familiar with cellaring, what are the advantageous aspects? Why should anyone do it? Why would anyone want to do it? And why, and also why have it? So that's just in anybody's house, but also why have basically it offloaded to the service that you are providing?
So that's a great question. Cellaring is a very important part of wine collection, and that is because wine gets better with time in a bottle. Now, not all wines can you age. It's based on a lot of factors of sugar, acidity, and things like that. But typically, great Israeli wines, like you can just throw out there the Castels and the Flams and the Katzrins of Israel, the great wines, they're good. And this is more of a recent development in Israel because the technology and the demand for great wine, like I know that Adam mentioned that in the show that you did. The technology is growing, the consumer demand, the consumer is demanding a greater product, and the kosher wine industry has grown with that and developed, and they're producing wines that are cellarable, meaning that if you buy a bottle now, it's okay. But certain wines, after you put them away for a few years, they will intensely become greater. They'll peak at a certain point, and then they'll move downwards. So a lot of times people want to invest in a bottle of wine when their child is born and open it at their bar mitzvah, or at their wedding. It's a lot more accessible now. And simply put, great wines increase in price every year by about 10, 15, or even more %. And if a person loves a wine, they want to grab it now, because if they want to enjoy it in a few years from now, when it's even better, the price will grow exponentially, and as soon as the new harvest comes out and the new bottle comes out, the new bottle assumes the previous price, and the harvest from the previous year shoots up. And when there's situations where there's less wine available because they've either been exported or because there's tough weather, or we have Shemitah every 7 years, where that causes a disruption for about 3 years. People are hoarding before then. There's nothing available. Yeah, because they know next year, whatever is coming out, a lot of people don't drink the Shemitah wine. So a lot less is produced. A lot of wineries go through different halachic aspects of how to produce it and what to do in the meantime, but I'm not going to get into that.
So I just want to point out, so for listeners who are interested, you're welcome to check. We did do an episode on Shemitah wine, so the four possibilities what could happen. I actually didn't know that wasn't just a one-off affecting the market. Obviously, for recent history, we had 2022 was the most recent Shemitah year, 2015 prior.
The 2023 was affected because of workforce in the wine industry, that people were called up to the army and weren't there to work. The foreign workers packed out. So
So you're saying it wasn't just the 2022 Shemitah year?
2022. Well, the disruption that Shemitah causes is that much less is produced because halachically they don't export Shemitah wines.
Right, but are you saying that the war in 23 affected the 2022 Shemitah products?
No, it was a follow. It was a compounded effect. It was a compounded effect, meaning that there was less. There was a big rush to get more wine out in 23, and then that hit the follow through, the domino effect from Shemitah, and then you had the war, and then so then you had less production or hindered production. I mean, there's a winery over here. I don't know if I'm supposed to mention names of specific wineries, but there's a winery here run by two guys. I know them. They were both called up to Gaza, and their wives continued on with the winemaking process over the phone and over Zoom through their phones. And their husbands were kind of guiding them what to do and how to produce it, because they had no idea. They were busy raising the family, and now they got pushed into the business, and they had to do it. So, that was just the effect there. And then,
also, I want to point out, so yeah, 2023, probably even 2024, I'm kind of curious to hear what you've heard, is not only in addition to the reduction in workforce because of Miluim, whatever, but also literally reduction there were some vineyards destroyed, especially up north through Hezbollah missile attacks, right?
Yeah, I know Alex Haruni at the Dalton Winery. I mean, I was watching his updates on social media on a daily basis, showing his employees hiding in bomb shelters and showing missile hits in their vineyards. So, I think through a lot of hard work and perseverance, they were able to get everything out, but it was a definite disruption. When there's less production, it causes the supply to go down, causes the price to go up. And, I know that a bunch of wineries started producing on Shemitah. They produce in Cyprus. And, if you see an Israeli wine that has a but that's kashrut on it from 2022. And even though it's an Israeli winery, those grapes didn't come from Israel. They didn't come from Israel. So people shuffle, people do what they have to do in order to get it out there. Obviously, some wines that are sold Shemitah are sold. It's marked that it's that it has the holiness of Shemitah, and it's sold for less of a price. And people just don't. People avoid it. I even saw a trend in the non-religious community not to buy Shemitah wines. It's a growing trend in Israel. People are just saying, "Why should I? I don't really. I might not understand it, or I might not. Keep all the rules." But I saw that stores are getting stuck with it. That normally would be selling it out and say, "Hey, it's a great price. I'll buy it." And they're like, "You know what? I'm not going to do it." There was a definite upward trend in observance where people started avoiding it. So
Wow.
yeah, listen, Shemitah is a huge disruption in supply, and it happens every 7 years. There's this, like I said, disruptions before, during, and after until things catch up again.
Going back to the cellaring, so you talked about the increase in quality, in value for the wines that people would want to do so, and then the advantage of having it not at people's houses or not. I guess you were saying it's not so easy to bring back a whole bunch of wines. It's nice, especially for people who are coming repeatedly to Israel in any given year. It's a lot just to have wines available that are already cellaring for years.
Yeah. So the definite advantage is the level of quality that you can have. If you now it's 2025. If you want to have the classic Israeli wine, Yarden, Yarden Cabernet Sauvignon, 2018 was a great year for them. If you in 2018, if you would have picked up a few cases, you can keep enjoying it now. But if you go to a store in Israel, they won't have any, even though they have other wines from 2018. It's just because it all got scooped up. People, like I said, there's definite hoarding going on. The winery is very particular with who they sell to because they don't want that happening. Because they like to control the supply in the market. So it's hard. It's hard to get great wines in Israel. I think in the States it's much easier, but I think that in Israel, Israeli wineries want to export as much as they can, but they also want to keep their brand going here in Israel. They give priority to hotels and restaurants. And the rest of it, a lot of Israeli wine is exported now to the Arab Emirates, to Dubai, they provide kosher services over there. A lot of Israeli wine goes over there. A lot goes there. So it's tough. It's tough to get really good stuff in Israel. I mean, and as well, I also deal I also deal in alcohol, because typically when a person is coming here for a chag, they want to have wine, but they'd also like some liquor.
Yeah.
In Israel, they call it alcohol. So
Really?
It's called alcohol. Yeah, it's called alcohol.
Okay.
There's actually a big store in Jerusalem called Alcohol Store. But based on to bring alcohol to Israel, there's a 100% duty. Tariffs are the big talk of the town these days.
Yeah.
But a bottle of regular tequila that costs $20 in New Jersey will cost $40 in Israel because automatically liquor, it has a double price on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I know that there's a big chain of stores called Bingo in the States.
Yeah.
People might be familiar with. Their sister company here is called Osherad. He's really big, and he brings in on his own. He imports not as the registered distributor. It's actually called they call it parallel in Israel. It's called parallel. It's not the Yivuan Rishmi. It's not the registered importer, but they are able to bring it in. And he really cracks the market on a lot of high-end products. So, that's one solution. But it's supply is a problem here in Israel.
Wow.
Meaning that the good stuff gets taken up right away and everything else gets exported. So so when you come here and you want to get great product, you need to know who to call, because the stores that have a limited amount will give to their better customers first. They'll hold it back. They'll keep it in the back room and they don't put it out on the shelf.
Yeah.
And you have to have more of a VIP status in order to get what you want. Meaning I treat all my customers as VIPs. So I get whatever, at the end of the day is I work with everybody. So I'm able to hopefully get them whatever they want. And if not, I can offer them something which is, as a substitute. But that's it. That's the daily grind over here.
Wonderful segue to get into the services you began offering. It sounds like concierge services you began offering after the war broke out regarding, I guess, tastings, and you mentioned others at the top of the show. So which kind of services have they been in, and what have you seen through those?
So the services that I primarily focus on is supplying private chefs and party planners, not so much caterers at big events, but more intimate, higher end parties where they need to get something great and they need a larger quantity of it, whether it's a champagne, whether it's whatever it may be. I work with those guys because they need to know that whatever they order, they're going to have it on time, no runaround. It is real. There's a game. There's a runaround here. I offer them the American service still in Israel, something that they can depend on. Where in the States, customer service is primary. Customer delight is all that counts. And I'm not gonna speak negatively about anything over here, but it's sometimes it's tough to get exactly what you want when you're used to getting whatever you want, when you're used to having reliability, and for the person selling it to you to take responsibility when it's not exactly what you want.
Yeah.
So that's really what I offer. I have a lot of fun doing wine tastings where I come and I usually get a crowd that doesn't really know wine. I have a funny shtick that I do is that I do it blind, meaning that I cover the bottles and I'll start off with a wine, a $4 or $5 wine, and I'll hand out papers to everybody, and they'll fill out the questionnaire. What do you think of it? And I'll put all the flavors that the wine snobs might say they sense, whether it's leather or gravel on a fall day, or citrus or dark chocolate and things like that. And I'll move on, and as the evening goes on, I'll improve the quality of the wine that they're getting. And then at the end, after they've come to understand it, and each time they get a new wine, they say, okay, listen, I like this one even better than the previous one, and this one even better than the previous one. I'll go back and bring them that $5 wine back at the end. And I say, guys, I have a big surprise for you. Let me see what you think about this one. And then they'll take a sip, and I'll notice people either like struggling to swallow it or spitting it out in their glass. And I said, guys, you now understand what fine wine is. That wine that you just drank was the first one that you tried that you said was okay. Now you can't even stand it because I've raised the bar. I've trained your palate to appreciate what wine can do for you, how it can make you feel, how it can taste, and the experience that you get from it. And that's usually that's the end of the evening. But it's truly amazing that what wine can do when you're given the right wine and you find the right wine that you like. When I take on a new customer, I study their profile and I say, what do you like to drink, and what do you like to enjoy with, and what do you like to eat, and what's your menu over the Chagim, and things like that. And I will really customize it. And sometimes I'll even put stickers on the bottles. I'll have this the first night, have this the second night. The second day you're having fish and chicken, I'd like you to try this one. Make sure it's in the fridge beforehand. This particular bottle, I'll put a sticker on it, open it an hour before you have the meal or before you go to the shul, to make sure that it's aired out properly. And I'll give them the notes and how to experience their wine journey to the fullest.
Hey there, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. If you like hearing about contemporary businesses involved in alcohol, well, you're in luck. Next week's episode is a similar topic. Here is a sneak peek.
But then I saw that Schmaltz was shutting down and Jeremy was pivoting to something else. So I reached out. I tried to get his attention. I joined the online Q&As with the forward, and I asked him what he's doing with the brand. Would he sell it? I didn't. Actually, that came later. I first said, can I be your rabbinic intern?
Hope you enjoy that sneak peek into the transitioning of Schmaltz Brewing, sort of the next stage in the iteration of that business, featuring Rabbi Jesse Epstein. And now back into this episode featuring Eli Freedman. Are there other services you provide in addition?
I do a bunch of gifting, meaning that a person calls up, they've just had a grandchild, or their son or daughter or grandchild just got out of the army, or had a simcha or a graduation. They'll say, listen, send them a case of champagne, or a business associate, or I do some corporate gifting where businessmen are coming in, staying at a hotel in Tel Aviv, having meetings. The company will have me send them to their room a box of cigars or something to kind of get the meeting going off on the right note. Yeah. So I do the gifting. When it comes to the holidays, there's the gifts for teachers and rebbes, for Hanukkah. Then there's Purim. Pesach is a big time for us. And then the summer is kind of quiet. So we do to keep busy. And then there's the people who have wine cellars who have wine cellars in their house. And I, every 3 months I said, listen, we got to restock. Let me come by. Let's take notes, see how much space you have. This is something new that I can offer you. This is something to try now. this is something great to invest in. This is a hidden gem. Buy a few cases of it now. I'm telling you, the prices are gonna go up. It's gonna get better. You're really gonna enjoy this. So, I've people come to trust me and understand that I know what I'm talking about. Even though I'm not a registered sommelier, but I've tried a lot, and I rely on my palate. And I get the buzz of what my people like, and I get it for them.
Hey there, I wanted to break in yet again. Although I asked for support in financial ways because it does cost some money to make the hosting happen and other aspects of Jewish drinking happen. So your financial support is definitely appreciated. And don't forget, you can go to jewishdrinking.com/donate. But also, another way of supporting the show and everything that Jewish Drinking does is also to tell your friends, tell your neighbors. If you like this content, if you like this show, maybe people also like it. So feel free to let them know, hey, I have this interesting episode I heard, or a few episodes, or whatever it is, or even a few clips. Feel free to share with your friends. All right, thank you so much. Now back into the show. Moving on to the most recent business venture of yours in recent months. So it's fresh, it's new,
super fresh,
and it's another I guess untapped niche. You mentioned at the outset, so there are importers bringing Israeli wines to North America, but this is something different, bringing a much smaller boutique garage winery wines to North America. So
exactly.
How did you get into that?
Funny story, very funny story. I was sitting on my couch one night and I got a Facebook message from a fellow from Omaha, Nebraska. And he sent me a message. He says, hey, I saw you on Facebook. I love Israel. I love wine. Do you think there's any way for you to get me wine to my house? So I said, yeah, sure, I can do that. I had already started shipping to a lot of private customers in the States. And I said, listen, I think that this is an idea here. And I developed the idea. I spoke to a lot of people, and I understood that this is between the ability that I found this perfect mix of being able to export it direct from winery to end user, to set up the logistics and the infrastructure needed to do it. My son is a software developer. So he got working on the project. I got Brian Wallace from Now Sourcing involved. I had just met him. He made Aliyah to Beit Shemesh just last year. And I said, listen, let's do something over here, because there's a demand for people, whether they're Jewish or not. They love Israel. They love wine. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are in that category. Let's create a product that they can rely on, that every month they get new surprises, they get new goodies and treats, whether it's a liqueur, whether it's a new fresh beer from Israel, because Israel is getting pretty big when it comes to spirits and to beers. It's developing an emerging market. There's even a tequila that's being developed now in the Negev. And I said, let me get these wines. And like I said
by the
before,
way, I think they have to call it an agave spirit.
Right. Just like I have a brandy, which is technically a cognac, but it doesn't come from the cognac region, so I have to call it a brandy.
Right.
And I said, let me get these products. And like I said before, I don't want to compete with anybody. And I said, listen, I'm going to bring wines that are not exported at all from Israel. They're not sold anywhere in Israel. And there are so many of them. There are so many beautiful, delicious possibilities here. Let me bring those direct from the producers to the end users in the middle. And at the same time, while people are supporting struggling farmers, wineries in Israel, at the same time, both supporting them and supporting yourself by enjoying great wine and getting something new every month. At a certain point, you've tasted every Israeli wine that's available on the market, but there's always new opportunities out there. And I live here, so I got boots on the ground, and I meet with the people, and I go there, and when you taste something and you just know it's right, you said, listen, you have to make these people famous and just get their the blood, sweat, and tears they put into it, get it out there so more people can enjoy it.
So it sounds like you're providing a service both directions for the consumer, that these are wines that they wouldn't otherwise normally have access to, perhaps even in Israel, since it sounds like they don't have a retail distribution set up aside from actually going direct to the winery. Obviously,
Correct.
For those in North America, it's incredible. It's coming to their doorstep. So that's a really, and it's probably been curated, handpicked, so it's really nice for the consumer. On the other hand, it sounds like you said the word struggling, so it sounds like some of these they don't have the bandwidth, maybe they don't have the skill set really to do the marketing, the distribution, really getting it out there. So you help even for the business side to really help expose them to a broader market, right?
Yeah, a lot of these wineries were not, like, first of all, the first point that you said is that when a person comes to Israel, they might not necessarily experience it because if they have a tour guide, the tour guide is going to take them to the well-established wineries that have a restaurant, that have tasting set up, and they're right off the road, and they're just there, and they're available, and they're famous, and they just get all the business. Whereas you have people who are not business-minded, who created their wineries because of their love of wine, their love of the land,
Right.
and they haven't really thought through the financials before they went into it because they didn't really care. They did it with passion, and that passion goes into the wine. And that's the passion that I really want to bring to people, where they literally, if you'd come to Israel, you wouldn't find them. Sometimes I have to drive through, places where I wouldn't be comfortable driving just to get to them, because whether they're set, they're our front line. I don't want to get political, but
Yeah, it's in Judea. It's probably in Judea.
Judea, Shomron, everywhere.
Yeah.
Up near Shiloh, north of Yerushalayim, there's a lot of wineries there that are you drive past them, you wouldn't know you drove past it. And that passion goes into it. And what I also seek to do is that you can get to one of these wineries and they might have 6 or 7 different varieties. I'll go through all of them and I'll pick out the best 2 or 3, and that's what I'll bring to the consumer. So they don't even have to worry about, oh, that's not really my thing. That's not really my thing. There's a lot of distilling going on, and with araks, and then there's ports, and then there's bubbly, and then there's sweet wines, and there's rosés and whites and Cabernet Francs, Petit Syrahs. The list is endless. But what I seek to really do is to get the best delight to the customer, get it to them, and they never had to get off their couch.
So kind of it makes me think about, in a whiskey context, for like a store barrel pick, but this is just for wines.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Very neat. And then also, how do you meet these wine? I know there's hundreds of wineries in Israel, and certainly it's easier to know the bigger name ones that are on the shelves that have the bigger tasting rooms. But how do you come across them? Do they reach out to you? How do you find out about some of these smaller wineries?
Well, thank God I am fluent in Hebrew, and a lot of times I just get into the car and start driving. I'm in the industry. I'm in the industry for almost 3 years. I know that's not a lot of time compared to some of your other guests, but people know about it here, and just no one makes a big fuss about it. And I just go there and I say, I go to wine shows. You meet new people all the time. There's people popping up all the time, and it's work, but I love it. And sometimes I have to go there and I have to wait before I drive home. But it's work, but that's what I do. That's what I do. That's what I love. I love every step that I take in this land. I appreciate, and I'm thankful for the people that in the God above us that provides that safety so that we can still do that. But that's my job. That's what I do. That's what I put my effort into, and that's what I seek to transfer to other people.
Curious, are there any particularly noteworthy surprises and or lessons that you have encountered in the last 2-3 years in this project? These projects.
Yes. Yeah. The main lesson that I've learned is don't predict anything, and don't rely on anyone except for the Lord above, and work hard. Don't be discouraged. It can be very discouraging at times. It can be rough. Obviously, when business is slow or things don't go your way, but those are just life lessons. I wouldn't say that in the industry lessons are stick to what you know, but you have to always remember that even if you think you know everything, there's still a lot more that you don't know, and there's so many hidden gems yet to be discovered that are available out there. That's what I would say. I'm definitely not smarter in the business. I walked into it kind of also not really thinking it out fully, but thank God, Baruch Hashem, we're still smiling.
Before we go, what would you like to promote?
I would like to promote primarily my new venture, the Cork Cellar Wine Club. There's a link on my website for it. It's Cork and Cellar with an A, Cellar with an A .net /club. But even if you don't put the /club in there, just go to my website. I'm in the upper right-hand corner. There's a little click on there for club. There's also a beautiful infographic produced by Brian Wallace at Now Sourcing, where it has a history, the biblical history, the history of the land. There's a lot of information there that's just super interesting that you can read. Like I said, you just go to corkandcellar.net and it's all there. And I'd be very excited to welcome any one of your listeners as a member. There's a slight delay between when you sign up and when you actually receive your first box. But after that, just simply because of what I need to source and what I need to ship. So there's a slight delay in the beginning, but after that, it's consistent every month. There's an option, there's a monthly option, and then there is a bi-monthly option. The bi-monthly option doesn't have free shipping, but it's still spread out over 12 months instead of 6 months. So the payments are lower, but either way, the same products are going out, and every box comes with a beautiful newsletter talking all about each wine with tasting notes about the winemaker, about the winery, about the terroir, where it was grown, if there's anything historical over there.
In each shipment, whether monthly, bi-monthly, how many wines come within each shipment?
The minimum that I ship is 3 bottles each time. It really depends on market pricing. Sometimes you might get 3 more expensive bottles. Sometimes you might get 1 more expensive bottle or somewhat cheaper. The value is always there. The quantity of the wine varies from month to month. We're planning on sticking in surprises like a nice corkscrew or a shot glass, or we're going to try some beers and things like that. The value is always there. The value is always there, and the number of bottles will vary from month to month just based on market conditions and what's available. Sometimes it might be a larger bottle or a smaller bottle, so there'll be room for more in the package. And obviously, we have shipping packaging in mind for that type of thing. But like I said, you just go to corkandcellar.net, you sign up, you get a quick little account there. You can pay with PayPal or whatever it is. It's all a very seamless process. And you get a welcome email, and you just sit back and wait with your glasses, and you get the box in the mail shortly thereafter.
Wonderful. All right. So, Eli, thank you so much. This has been great. And l'chaim.
L'chaim.